Hi there, TauStats community. It's the first week of November 2025, and with the chain release that's going to happen this week, we're going to have a fundamental change with the way tau is emitted into subnet pools. Now, if you've been with us since the beginning of dtau, you have seen a formula that looks like this, that shows that the tau in for a subnet is equal to the price of the alpha for that subnet divided by the sum of subnet prices. We should be adding now a times the tau emission on all of our formulas because we do have a halving coming up in less than a month. And so this is showing that the tau in here will add up to 1, but after the tau halving, it'll add up to 1/2 because half as much tau will be emitted. But we're getting rid of this formula, and we're going to have a new way of emitting tau into our subnets. So let's learn what that is and how we calculate it. So our new model is very similar, but it's subtly different as well. And instead of alpha price for each subnet, we're going to look at the tau flow. And it's going to be the tau flow over the sum of tau flow for all subnets. So at a fundamental level, these look very similar, right? We have alpha over sum of alpha prices. Now we have flow over the sum of flows. This isn't going to be a 100% flip over. What's going to happen is over the next 30 days, the old model starts off at 100%, and then literally over the next 216,000 blocks, that's 30 days in chain time, it's going to decrease, and the new model is going to increase so that at 30 days, the new model is at 100%. So what is flow? Let's start at the block level. At every single block, someone may stake into a subnet or someone may unstake from a subnet. So the flow is just you add up the positive inflow and you subtract off the negative outflow, and that's how much tau flowed into the pool. What is not tau flow? Root proportion, neuron registration, and tau emission are not counted. It's really only when someone does a stake or when someone does an unstake. Now you can look at this as this could be really chaotic, right? Because a lot of times no one's doing anything. For a lot of blocks, a subnet may have no staking or no unstaking, and then they may have 100 in, 100 out, 200 in, 200 out, like it can be nuts. You can also have a negative flow on every single block, right? If someone unstakes and no one stakes in, the flow is negative. But we can't have a negative emission. We can't take tau out of the subnet pool. So we need to fix these two things. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a moving average, an exponential moving average with a half-life of 30 days. So we're going to get rid of the chaos. Every new block is like 0.003% of the percentage, and so it's going to be a nice smooth number. So how do we get rid of the negative? Well, what we define the flow for a subnet is it has to be greater than 0. So if you have a negative flow for that block, we just don't give you any emission. You get 0 emission. No emission is taken away, but you get 0 emission. So now, when we calculate tau in for a subnet, if you have negative flow or a negative EMA flow, you're going to have a 0 up here. So you get 0 emission. If your subnet has positive net flow, positive net EMA flow, then you have a positive number here. And you get a percentage of the emissions. And only the subnets that have a positive EMA flow will get any emissions. So that's a pretty big change. A lot of subnets are going to suddenly start seeing that they have 0 emission. So we can look at some inflows. So this is subnet 64 for about the last day. You can see on most blocks, there's 0 inflow. There is no staking actions. There were no unstaking actions. And then you can see we have some positives. We have some negatives. And here I'm calculating the EMA flow for just one day. I'm not doing the exponential moving average for the history of subnet 64. We're just looking at, so in reality, this is going to be a much smoother line. But what this does show is here is a positive EMA flow, so there will be emission. Here's a negative EMA flow, no emission. So you can see emission can turn on and off based on the flow. So here there was a large stake in, it jumped up, and then it jumped right back down again because we can see the negative, the unstake here. Here we can see that these two unstakes dropped it from positive to negative. Another unstake dropped it even further. And then we have a positive and a negative to give us a little spike right here. In reality, the EMA flow isn't going to be this jumpy. This is just a simplification looking at one day as opposed to the history of subnet 64. But the big news here is that emission is now subject to the amount of tau being staked into a subnet. And in about 30 days, right about the time of the halving, this is going to be how 100% of the tau emission into subnets is going to be handled. So stay tuned to Tau Stats. We will keep you up to date on all of the changes happening inside BitTensor, and we're excited to see how this plays out on the network. Thanks for watching.